App Store optimization, and ways to improve your App Store strategy. So over 65% of all the downloads on the iOS App Store come from search. It can be really difficult, as you know, to find the apps that you're looking for, as there are over 2 million iOS App Store apps and 2.5 million Google Play Store apps. In such a crowded space, finding inventive ways to not only attract but also to retain targeted users is really important to the long-term health and viability of your app. My name is Alice Liu, and I lead our webinar and workshop program here at App Annie, and I'm joined today by Alex Lee, who is a Senior Enterprise Account Executive at App Annie. Alex plays an integral role in helping Fortune 500 companies such as Google, Snapchat, and McDonald's, and others in various industries with their mobile app strategies. He's extremely well-versed in the world of mobile. I'm really excited for him to join me today to tell us all how to optimize our App Store assets. For a quick agenda of today's topics, Alex will be sharing some of the tactics you can use to position your app for success. These strategies will help you to learn best practices for improving discoverability, turning searchers into visitors, and ultimately long-term users, and also sharing some practical examples of how other apps have found success with these tactics. We hope you'll be able to get some actionable insights from today's workshop, and as always, feel free to submit any questions or comments throughout in the Q&A box, and we'll get a chance to answer them at the end of the session. Before we get started, for those of you who aren't familiar with us, App Annie provides app market data to help inform all of your mobile app decisions. Our supremely comprehensive and accurate data ensures that we are uniquely positioned to help our customers create differentiated mobile app strategies. So before we get started, let's quickly talk about App Store optimization and why it's so important. It's a known fact that the app stores are crowded. As I mentioned earlier, as of today, there are about 2 million apps on the iOS App Store and 2.5 million apps on Google Play. So competition is obviously really high on the small smartphone screen. And because 63% of downloads come from search, it's especially important to make sure your apps are discoverable and standing out. Today, we'll talk through a couple of the different ways you can drive higher quality downloads by improving your App Store presence and help you track and respond to changes in the market quickly. So what factors actually influence visibility in these app stores? We'll be looking at two key elements of your App Store optimization strategy today and the assets corresponding to both of these. The first we'll focus on is discoverability. Can users actually find your app? And then secondly, and perhaps even more importantly, conversion. Once they actually find your app, will they actually be able to download it? While differences exist between the two stores, the key themes remain the same. For users to find your app, keywords are crucial, and Alex will bring you through a keyword workflow in a few minutes. In addition, top charts and getting featured boost your discoverability too. On the other hand, when we look at conversion, or when a user actually downloads your app, we'll have to think about assets such as icons, screenshots, reviews, general look and feel of how your app appears on the App Store, which are all focused on communicating your app's value proposition to the user and giving the user that final push for install. So really being on top of both of these elements is crucial for driving the organic downloads. Before we dive into the actual tactics behind discoverability and conversion, let's take a look at the key differences between the two stores from an ASO perspective. As I mentioned in the previous slide, there are quite a few differences in ASO between the App Store and the Play Store. And the main ones we'll focus on, just for ease of remembering, are keywords, updates, and backlinks. So first, let's talk about optimizing for Google Play. The first key difference between the two stores is keywords. While keywords play an important role in both the stores, the way they are read is different. So in Google Play's algorithm, it takes almost every textual element into consideration for keyword indexing. So what that means is in order to get a keyword index, it needs to be included somewhere between 2 to 5 times in the Google Play description, or once in the app title or short description, which you'll see here in this mock-up that we put up. In terms of app updates, to make changes to almost any text changes in the iOS App Store, you will need approval by Apple. However, on Google Play, you can submit those changes immediately. Backlinks or incoming hyperlinks are also incredibly important for the Play Store. However, they have no impact on the iOS App Store. And finally, the Play Store takes into account click-through rates, install rates, retention, and engagement on a search term level. The algorithm considers apps with the best performance, lowest number of crashes, and stability. In terms of optimizing on the iOS App Store, we'll see a lot of similarities in terms of what's visible on the app's description page to the Google Play Store. But one of the biggest differences to take into account for any changes you make to your app in the iOS App Store is all these changes, aside from your description, must actually be approved by Apple. So it's a little bit more difficult to make these changes. The iOS App Store also has a keyword field where you can provide keywords with a 100-character limit. In iOS, it's not really recommended for keyword repetition, and there's also no need for plurals, misspellings, or anything like that. However, keywords can be repeated in the Play Store without cramming them to get more visibility on those keywords. With the iOS 11 release, the app name, one of the most important fields for the algorithm, was shortened to 30 characters, and that was back in fall of 2017, so about a year ago. The good news is that Apple added the subtitle fields, which is also considered in app indexing, and it can be about 30 characters long. In-app purchases can appear in the app search, meaning that you must work on your keywords because obviously they are also indexing your product. And another change with iOS 11 was autoplay of preview videos in the App Store. And with that really quick overview, I'll pass it off to Alex, who will do a deep dive on different strategies on how you can actually improve discoverability and increase conversion just from some tweaks to your App Store optimization strategy.
Great. Thank you, Alice. And thanks again, everyone, for joining today. We're going to focus on discoverability first. I think this is a really important topic. I think a lot of folks are asking, why do we care about discoverability? Our app is already very highly ranked for our specific category, or people already know who we are. And so one of the best case studies we like to kick off with is just thinking about Amazon. I think obviously it's clear that Amazon is one of the largest, if not the largest, mobile or digital retailer out there. And if you think about shopping apps, Amazon certainly comes top of mind, but they still see fit to focus on App Store optimization to increase their own discoverability. If you can see here, in late June, they actually changed their title on iOS. They changed it from Amazon app, shop, scan, compare, and read reviews to Amazon Shopping Made Easy. And with this simple title change, they immediately stopped ranking for compare and scan, which, if you can see on the screen here, weren't really driving a lot of traffic anyways. And they skyrocketed for the term shopping, which also, correlated with a big increase in downloads from Prime Day, so this is well timed. And if you take a look here, shopping has a much higher search volume than the previous keywords they were ranking for. So this change not only served to simplify their title, it also focused their keywords on the most relevant ones that also had the highest search volume, and the ones that would eventually drive the most traffic to the app. So if we think about the framework for optimizing keywords, it really is a continuous process. First is keyword discovery. Right? This is the process of finding as many relevant keywords as possible. You want to leverage your own keywords. You want to think about similar keywords or synonyms. You want to be thinking about how your app is perceived from a use case perspective, functionality, and you also want to be looking outside your own app and looking at competitors' keywords and seeing how they're positioning themselves in the App Store. After discovery, it's going to be a period of validation or validating. You want to evaluate your base list of keywords, always sort of iterating there to understand which ones are performing well, which ones aren't, how much traffic are they getting, how difficult is it to rank for these keywords, as this list will change over time as you move new keywords in and you move underperforming ones out. And then just ongoing tracking of performance. You want to understand which keywords are live. You want to understand which ones are driving traffic share. You'll want to understand if there's specific keyword changes that you've made within your description or your title or different parts of the app description, if it's increasing the ranking for those specific keywords as well. So if we sort of go through the funnel here in terms of keyword discovery and thinking about how can we come up with our own list of potential keywords, the most important, I think, is to first think about your own app, right? Let's look in the mirror and understand what type of app do we have? How do we communicate the mission of this app? How do we break our app down into specific components or functions that are easy to digest and we think users will be searching for? From there, we can then look outside to understand, for all of our competitor apps, what are the keywords that they're ranking really highly on? What are the keywords that are driving a lot of traffic to their apps? Are they mostly branded keywords, i.e. are consumers just searching for the competitor's name? Or are there specific functions or use cases that we should be focusing on that our competitors are ranking really highly for? Another great component that I think a lot of ASO folks miss out on is thinking about user reviews. Now, reviews are really important for two reasons. One is the higher rated and reviewed your app is, the higher it's going to show up in the ranks as a highly reviewed and highly rated app generally gets favorable rank consideration. But another component is really mining reviews to understand how your consumer thinks about your app, right? This way, you get a clear understanding of what 5-star reviewers may be leaving in terms of their favorite features of your app, what's really driving delight, and these may also fuel different keyword ideas as you begin looking outside of your base list. There are also other tools that are available outside of App Annie, such as Google's Keyword Planner, leveraging Google Trends to understand which keywords are moving in different positions for seasonal events. And then, of course, also leveraging the App Store trending keywords as well as suggestions that come up when you search for yourself or competitors. So if we take a look at understanding competition, what you can see here is you can quickly look at competitors' App Store descriptions, keywords, and user reviews, and also focus on the keywords that are most relevant by ensuring that these keywords define your product as well as your use cases. What you can also do is search for specific keywords within App Annie and see, what are the top 10 keywords that'll surface, top 10 apps that'll surface for that keyword. Understanding if the search results that come back will be your direct or indirect competitors. As mentioned, ratings reviews is a really important component of discoverability, not only again for really driving up the position of your app as a result on a search component, but also potentially mining the reviews for specific keywords, understanding what 5-star reviewers think about them. Keyword validation, if we're thinking about once you have a base list of keywords or understanding, now we need to figure out which keywords are going to give you the best results, given the fact that you do have a limited space at your disposal and you do need to make sure that the most relevant keywords are included in the space. So there's sort of 3 factors that we can think about here. The first is going to be relevance, right? This is just going to be how popular a keyword is, are users searching for it, and how difficult is it to rank for that specific keyword. Relevance is pretty straightforward. If you're searching for a particular keyword and the other 10 apps that surface for that keyword are your competitors, it's most likely going to be a relevant keyword. And then if you think about search volume, this is an App Annie metric that indicates how popular that keyword is in terms of users search. It's an indexed scale from 1 to 100. So we can see here at the bottom as an example for match games versus puzzle games. Match games has a search volume of 37, but then an index difficulty score of 73. So it's relatively low search volume, but high difficulty. And you can see that based on the ratio of search volume over difficulty on the far right. It's got a 0.5. In general, we want to be focusing on keywords that have as high a ratio of search volume to difficulty as possible. And so, if I were an ASO manager for Candy Crush, I would definitely focus on puzzle games versus match games because it's likely targeting the same audience, but puzzle games is searched much more frequently relative to its difficulty. Once we've built our list and once we've validated the most important ones, we want to have an ongoing tracking of performance. How are these keywords stacking up? Are they driving traffic to the app? Where do we rank for these keywords? Have we increased our rank for these keywords or stayed flat or consistent? In this specific example, we're just looking at a couple of long-tail keywords for Talking Tom. For Talking Tom, generally, a lot of the highest traffic share keywords will be branded ones for people who are searching specifically for the app because it's got a pretty strong brand name. But if we're thinking about making incremental changes, especially for Talking Tom Gold Run, which is their runner version of their very famous apps, then we should be thinking about these generic keywords that folks may be searching. And so if we take a look at these two, a clear example would be between running games and running app. Obviously, running app is going to be less relevant. It's going to be a broader search in terms of what people are looking for. Therefore, you can see that Talking Tom Gold Run also ranks low for it. And if you were to imagine which apps show up in the top 10 for this, it's likely going to be a lot of health and fitness apps. Something that's more refined would be running games. You can see it's driving more traffic share as well. This might be an area where we want to see if we can increase our traffic share by increasing our keyword rank here from 8 into maybe the top 3 or so. As mentioned before, if we think about relevance and also identifying different components where we want to rank highly for keywords, keyword search is going to be one of your best tools. As you can see here within App Annie, if you're a travel or mobile bookings app, the keyword travel should most likely be a priority, especially since it's nearly 30% of Google Trips, which is the number one result right here. It's 30% of their relative traffic share. And you can see in positions 2, 3, and 4, you've got Expedia, you've got Hopper, you've got other travel booking apps. So if this is going to be the vertical that you compete in, it's very important to understand where your competition is ranking for and which keywords are driving a lot of traffic for them already. I think it's important here because if people are searching for travel, they're likely going to be high intent and most likely to convert. So they're either going to download your app or one of your competitors' apps. And that brings me to this next view, which is actually my absolute favorite view for tracking keyword performance over time within App Annie, which is Keyword Compare. So what we offer within App Annie is the ability to create custom groupings of apps. So let's say we've created a custom grouping, again, for travel planning apps. And what we can monitor, not only can we monitor their downloads and engagement over time as a way to measure campaign performance or acquisition strategy in terms of quantitative results, we can also understand if our ASO strategy is working out in terms of keywords and keyword ranking. So what you can do within Keyword Compare is quickly benchmark all of your keywords against your competitors. You can understand where you rank and where you don't rank relative to all the keywords that your competitors have as well as your own. So you can also understand where your competitive moat is, which keywords are you only ranking highly for and everyone else is outside the top 10. This is also a really great way to identify new keywords within your own keyword set as well as within competitors, and a really quick way to track shifts in competitive keyword strategy. If you see a rapid spike in someone's ranking for keywords, you can see it here and then dig deeper into what they may have been doing with their screenshots, their title, their description, etc. And all of this is made easier within App Annie. You can schedule a report to automate your performance traffic. Instead of manually generating performance readouts on a weekly or monthly basis, you can just create an automated report that sends a weekly email out that has a breakdown of all of your different keywords and the results. Moving on to increasing conversion. So obviously we just talked about discoverability, and that's really getting folks sort of halfway there, getting them to the app view page. And now we'll spend some time thinking about how do we really sort of seal the deal in terms of getting them to download the app. So the first case study we'll look at is for Ebates. If you're not familiar with Ebates, it's an online rebates and cashback service that rewards you for shopping at various retailers. And so you can imagine that this example is super relevant for this time of year. In general, for most holiday seasons, Ebates has a really large outsized opportunity to capitalize on Black Friday and the shopping frenzy that ensues. And as you can see here within App Annie's timeline report, Ebates actually changes a lot in terms of their App Store icons and screenshots. So they move from a green background to a black background, and they actually change their screenshots to highlight Black Friday. And this had a twofold impact on their performance. They began ranking in the top 25 for the keyword Black Friday in the week leading up to and the day of Black Friday. And at the same time, they also rose in the download ranks by 8 spots to rank in the top 10 shopping apps in the United States on Black Friday. This is likely due, at least in part, to some of the conversion tactics that they implemented from their screenshots, as well as some titles that we can take a look at later. And speaking of titles, the example here, Retail, is an app that basically combines local coupons for you. If you think about how they positioned it, they actually went pretty extreme, right? So they began testing in their title Black Friday. And what this chart shows you is their relative keyword rank for Black Friday. So in mid-October, they changed their title to include Black Friday, replacing weekly. And then on Black Friday, they actually and then a little bit earlier, they actually just changed their app name to Black Friday 2016, ads, shopping deals, and coupons. And then, they saw an increase in their keyword rank and resulted in a 100% increase in downloads, which you could see through App Annie Intelligence. So certainly a relatively extreme way to work Black Friday into your App Store optimization tactics, but one that should be considered potentially more subtly, but just give you an example of how folks have used seasonal keyword strategy in their conversion tactics. Oops. Moving on into specifics, one of the most important components is going to be the app icon, right? It should be simple, it should be eye-catching, but in general, they're given how many apps there are on the App Store, it requires really cohesive design when thinking about how to keep the app icon simple and eye-catching. If you think about how users are browsing the store, if you take a look at just the top 5 apps that were to appear if you were to search for women's fashion, 3 out of these 5 don't really stand out, right? They're going to be relatively cluttered, and the ones that stand out would be apps 1 and 4, Romwe and Shine, which are both owned by the same company, and they're easily recognizable, and they're simple. If you take a look at what ASOS has done and how they've evolved their app icon over time, they've gone from kind of this clunky, oversaturated image, and then they've really gone for streamlined and clean. And you can see their changes from 2013 that they made, as well as their changes they made recently last year. Important tips to keep in mind when focusing on app design. Obviously, you want to ensure that your app icon is different from competitors. You want to ensure that whatever keywords that you're popping up in, the top 10 that you're showing up around, you want to truly distinguish yourself from, and really understand, what competitors are doing in their app icons to ensure that what you're putting out there is truly unique. We're thinking about descriptions, screenshots, creative assets. This is also a really important one because for everyone that scrolls through these images, they will represent roughly half of your install base. And if you think about how do we optimize these different components, again, reviews and ratings is a really great way to think about how customers are talking about you, right? What are our 5-star customers saying about our app? What do they love about it? Can we work some anonymous quotes in? It should definitely factor into how you are thinking about positioning and branding your app because it's coming directly from customers who are happy. You should also focus on simple screenshots. They should communicate the value very clearly. They should help to onboard the customer and really begin to position them in the mindset of already using the app. How you can do this, you use App Annie and you can take a look at the timeline view for all the various categories and apps with behaviors that you'd like to emulate. Understand what their screenshots look like. Understand how they've changed their screenshots over time, A/B test, and really make sure that your screenshots are accomplishing the most with the little real estate that you have been granted. So a couple examples of what I'm talking about of making your best offer visible. If we take Ibotta, what they did was they switched their screenshot from a cashback promo to really showcasing the actual reward on the phone, really sort of cementing this image in the user's head that they can really get a lot of offers from using Ibotta. If you think about highlighting functionality, Pampers, they have a scanned screenshot, and if you can see, they moved from the original one, which is very realistic, and they moved more towards a representational cinematic one, which generally can be received better. It's cleaner. The image is more professional. And then if you think about the last example, TimeHop is staying relevant by tying in current events. They changed their screenshot from a very cute dog to a New Year's celebration in order to stay relevant with seasonality. So now if we begin to think about how do we focus on the differences based on the App Store, right? So as mentioned earlier by Alice, roughly 2/3 of downloads come from organic search. A lot of people are still accessing apps through search, and so it's important to think about the nuances between the store. If we look at the Apple App Store, we've got the icon, we've got title, and we've got miniature screenshots. Whereas on the Play Store, we just have the icon and the title. And so I think since we're all familiar with A/B testing icon and screenshots, it's very important to test those here, given that they're being displayed in the search results for the App Store. When it comes to the title, we can leverage learnings from our paid search teams who are generally testing copy that maximizes conversion. And you should also be thinking about the number of organic search results that come above the fold, which is effectively, what content shows up without scrolling. And this is really where the difference between Apple and Google Play comes into mind. With the new search results that also factor in paid search terms on Apple, the real estate is really, really cramped when it comes to which apps will show up, right? In some instances on the smaller iPhones, called the iPhone 7s and 8s, there may only be 2 results that come up, which would be the paid search ad result and then the number 1 ranking app. So that really goes to show how important it is to rank number 1 for specific key terms. On the Play Store, you'll have a few more options that come above the fold. So you have a little more wiggle room here in terms of, should we just focus on the top 5? What's good enough to drive traffic? And you, of course, can measure these through App Annie. But just a really good way to think about, sometimes it's not good enough to rank in the top 5 on the App Store. We need to be top 1 or top 2, because if you think about how many scrolls it takes to reach number 5 or number 10 or number 25, it may be prohibitive for the end user. So now that we've understood sort of the nuances for how your app's displayed in search results and how to think about that content, we should also be thinking about how we convert people once they actually come to the App Store page. So this is actually after they've actually clicked on the link or the search result, and now they're viewing your app, and they're basically one click away from downloading the app. And if we think about which elements are on the store pages, these are the ones that are most important from a conversion standpoint. You can notice that on Apple versus Google Play, it's a little bit different components here. You'll note that the screenshots and the feature graphics are placed differently on Google Play versus Apple. If you have any videos that you are installing here, the first 5 seconds are super critical, as 10% of users drop off every 5 seconds. The industry standard is roughly 15 to 25 seconds. You don't want to go much longer than that because people typically won't view a video for much longer. Obviously, ensure that your app is going to be localized. It's most likely going to be displayed prominently if it's featured, so you want to avoid any embarrassing incidents where your app is featured in a country where the language isn't localized. And you should always be doing this in the context of the user, right? We should always be thinking about what communicates the clearest story to the user in terms of what our app does and what the value is going to bring to them. And as you can see in these examples here, right, Uber Eats, it's very straightforward. They're showing you dinner options, really highlighting a lot in the title, the icon, straightforward in the description, really communicating as much value as possible without needing the user to click around more, because obviously the idea is to drive to that open or install button there. That wraps up the second piece around conversion. One quick note, do not worry, we will send this deck out afterwards. We've covered a lot of content, so I just want to do a quick review of what we went over. Obviously, the most important thing from an App Store optimization standpoint is to continually test, always test, make small changes, continuously iterate. It's an incremental improvement process that is always changing based on seasonality, based on new entrants, based on shifts in the way that consumers are searching or consuming apps. We should always be thinking ahead and always being proactive as well as reactive with our process. We should be thinking about mining user reviews for popular keywords. Once you've done your sort of base keyword list and have a clear understanding of the competitive landscape, you'll really begin looking outside of that to understand where can we unearth potential keywords that no one else is thinking about that we may be actually really relevant for. And one of the best sources for that is by mining your own reviews and competitor reviews. You want to really learn from top competitor keyword strategy. Generally, the top competitors will be the ones that are driving a lot of installs to their mobile app and therefore have a lot of resources to dedicate towards ASO. So one good way to learn from their best practice is to understand the keywords that they are ranking highly for, as well as the ones that they're beginning to rank highly for. Look for keywords that are changing drastically in terms of rank from a day-over-day or week-over-week perspective, and then understand where they began working these keywords into their ASO strategy. Did they work into their title? Did they change their description, subtitle? Are they focusing on it from a screenshot perspective? Right? Always learn from the competition so that you can also test and learn smarter. And of course, the app is just one component of a multi-channel strategy. Your keyword strategy should be consistent, but also evolving as your audience does, right? So really understanding how your audience segments perform across mobile web, mobile, and desktop, and really aligning the keyword strategy to address the audience that is most likely going to convert through your mobile channels. We think about App Annie. As mentioned, we are the most trusted partner in the app economy. If anyone has questions on how to do anything of this in detail or wants to do a quick demo of the platform, please feel free to reach out through the App Annie request page, and we can work from there. Happy to dig into more details that are more vertical specific or industry relevant. Given how broad the presentation was today, and there may be some learnings that would be more useful for folks in a more one-to-one setting.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that really quick overview of all of the ASO tactics that we can be using. We do have a couple of minutes for questions, and I saw a lot of good ones come in. If you have any questions, feel free to slot them into the Q&A box, and we'll get a chance to answer them. So taking a look at some of these questions, how do I quickly identify how I rank versus my competitors? Alex, would you like to cover this one?
Sure. So if we think about how to quickly rank versus competitors, I know we covered a lot in the slides, but there was one slide that, as mentioned, we can send out later, which is called Keyword Compare. And this is a really great way to build a custom set of your competitive list. And actually, you can even use ASO or keyword search to identify new competitors that you may not be aware of. And so again, let's say it's travel. If you search for travel, you can create a custom grouping of the top 10 apps that show up when people are searching for travel. And then from there, you can monitor your keywords versus the competitor's keywords across all of the keywords they're ranking for within the keyword compare view. And let me see if I can just find that view one more time, just to show you what it looks like. It's this view right here, the keyword compare view. So you can sort high to low based on search volume, based on your keyword rank versus or your competitor's keyword ranks. And what you'll begin to see is like this really cool grid. It's almost like a really quick SWOT analysis that shows, for a specific keyword, let's just call it, like Google Flights. Everyone else would be ranking like out or, 99, and then Google Trips will be ranking number 1. You can see that, in a grid format for all the keywords. So you can quickly identify, okay, here are some gaps in my keyword strategy. I'm not ranking for this keyword, whereas every single one of my competitors is. I need to begin working this in immediately. A really great way to address low-hanging fruit.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
Alice?
Yes, we do. I think I'll actually take this one. I'm seeing a question about how rankings are determined in both the stores. I know that we both covered this a little bit, but just to reiterate, while neither store has actually detailed how their ranking algorithms work, we do know that it's really important for both stores to reward quality titles as opposed to those that are just being installed in large numbers. So for both stores, they consider things like engagement metrics of the app, things like click-through rates, install rates, retention. So driving downloads is definitely important, but all those other engagement metrics are maybe even more important in terms of ranking on the app stores. And then I feel like also for the iOS, revenue numbers are also something that you want to be considering as well, and that can actually help you to be featured a bit more. Another question that I'm seeing, how do we figure out what app subtitle is actually best for my app? Alex, you want to take this one?
Sure. So I think it's a good question, but it's relatively broad because subtitles can really vary based on the industry or category we're in. I think the most important thing is to think about how competitors are positioning their subtitles. Which keywords they're including. I would generally opt for brevity. You see a lot of different tactics in play for subtitles, but in general, I think the most important things are highlighting the keywords that you're already ranking highly for, that are already driving a lot of traffic for you, the keywords that you really want to rank number 1 for, and finding a way to work it into your subtitle, even, doubly emphasizing if it's already inside your title. I think the subtitle is a good place to clarify and double down on your value prop. Let me see. I see another question here that says, what's a good time frame to test changes made in the App Store before analyzing the effects of that change? 10 days, 30 days? I think, again, this will vary based on the industry and how quick moving it is. I think for faster moving industries, let's say like news, for example, where, there's a lot of different trending topics that are coming into play that may be top of mind for people when they're searching. It can definitely be 10 days or even on a weekly basis with some of our news and media clients. They're testing keywords every single week. And again, the idea here is small iterations, right? It's not massive overhauls to your entire App Store description, but it's just finding ways to work small keywords in and measuring the lift. And when we think about measuring lift, it's really thinking about the increase in ranking and then obviously a lift in conversion from those keywords. I think if you're going to test a major App Store optimization overall, I think 30 days makes sense. You want to give yourself enough runway for the apps to begin ranking highly, and then also for conversion, for folks to begin discovering your app, giving enough time to really measure out what happens after you begin ranking highly. The other important thing here is also to think about is seasonality, right? You want to give yourself a longer time frame in the event that there's some seasonality in play that may artificially inflate or deflate your results.
Awesome. And I think we have time for one more question. If Alex, you want to take this one. Is it possible to do A/B testing with ASO? I think you covered this a little bit earlier, but maybe just to provide a little bit more detail for this. I think we had like 3 questions about this one.
So it is possible to A/B test on the Google Play Store. I believe that you can just test immediately. So you don't need to submit for approval through the Google Play Store. So let's say you wanted to change something in your app, for example, right? In the App Store description or title. On iOS, you have to submit an update, right? But on Google Play, you don't need to. So it's a really great way to think about A/B testing because you can just begin, and Google Play actually has their own A/B testing platform. So you can just begin testing different app names, descriptions, things like that, and segmenting your user base that way. And it's a really great way to understand which keywords may be performing well on Google Play. And then from that A/B testing platform, of course, then moving it over onto iOS, which again is a little bit more restricted because you can only update with the version. So you're going to be more limited on iOS. Every time you update apps, the ASO, it has to be a version update, meaning you must actually push it out to everyone that sees your app. So you're going to be more limited here. So I would recommend more A/B testing on Google Play, which is going to be more relaxed and more flexible in terms of how you can do that, and then taking those learnings and implementing them where you see fit on iOS.
Awesome. Thank you for that answer, Alex. We are coming right up on time. So I know there are a lot of unanswered questions. We will be reaching out after the webinar, so you'll be able to get those questions answered. And again, thank you so much for joining. All of the data we shared today was driven entirely by App Annie Intelligence. So if you are interested in getting some of these insights for your own app, feel free to visit the Contact Us page, the website on the page right here, and we would love to help out. We'll always be sending a recording of this webinar following the webinar, so maybe in the next day or two, and then you'll be able to get a recording as well as the slide deck. Please keep in touch, and we'll definitely see you at our next webinar. Thank you so much for joining.